I'm Sharon Mackless at IDG Communications, here with episode 52 of Do More with R, Crosstabs. Crosstab reports summarize data by two or more variables. For example, how did people vote on ballot question 1, broken down by gender and age group? There are a few ways to generate a crosstab report in R. I'd like to show you some of my favorites. For this demo, I'll use a subset of the Stack Overflow Developer Survey with columns for languages, gender, and if they code as a hobby. I also added a language group column for whether a developer reported using R, Python, both R and Python, or neither. If you'd like to code along at home, check out the related InfoWorld article at the URL on screen. It's got all the code from this episode plus info on the dataset. To create my crosstab reports, I'll be using the Janitor and vtree packages. Okay, let's take a look at the data. First, I'll load the packages. Then we'll look at the first few lines. You can see the data has one row for each survey response, and the 4 columns are all characters. I'll run skimmer skim to get another look. I filtered this raw data to make the crosstabs more manageable, including removing missing values and taking the 2 largest genders only, man and woman. So, what's the gender breakdown within each language group? There are a lot of ways to do this in R, but for crosstab reporting in a data frame, one of my go-tos is the Janitor Packages table function. That's T-A-B-Y-L, because it's so easy to use. The basic table function gives you a data frame with raw counts. The first column name you add to a table argument becomes the row, and the second one is the column. What's nice about table is it's very easy to generate percents too. If you want to see percents for each column instead of the raw totals, add adorn underscore percentages COL like I'm doing here, and then you can see you can pipe it in to a percent formatting function. And you can see here, I've got my percentages nice and formatted. If you'd like to see percents by row, add adorn percentages row. If you want to add a third variable, such as hobbyist, that's easy too. However, it gets a little harder to visually compare results in more than 2 levels this way. This code returns a list with one data frame for each third level choice. By the way, if you want a super easy way to plot two-way crosstabs, check out the CGP functions package. It's got 2 functions of interest here, plot xtabs and plot xtabs2. Let's take a look. I'll load the package. Here's plot xtabs. You can see the plot in the bottom right panel here. We can look at it the other way. And here's the plot xtabs2 function. Lots of nice data here, a little different kind of graph. If you don't need all the statistical information at the top, you can add results.subtitle equals false as an argument, and that goes away. And we can see it the other way. Now let's look at vtree. It generates graphics for crosstabs. Running the main vtree function on one variable gets you this basic response. I'm not keen on the color defaults here, but you can swap in an R color brewer palette. vtree's palette argument uses palette numbers, not names. You can see how the palettes are numbered in the vtree package documentation. I'm going to choose 3 for greens and later 5 for purples. Having the lower number value with a more intense color doesn't make sense for me here, but I can add sort fill equals true to use the more intense color for the higher value. That makes more sense. But if you find the dark color makes it hard to read the text, there are some options. One is to use the plain argument. That gets you this. Not quite as interesting, but easier to read. Another option is to set a single fill color instead of a palette using the fill color argument. For a two-way crosstab, just add a second variable, and palette or color if you don't want the default. Here I'm adding palettes. You can use the plain option here too. I also rotated the graphic so it reads vertically. And here I'm specifying two colors instead of two palettes. You can add more than two categories, although it gets a bit harder to read and follow as the tree grows. Here's a better look at that in a browser. If you're only interested in some of the branches, you can specify only some to display with the keep argument. Like here, if I only want to see people using R without Python or both R and Python. With the tree getting so busy, I think it helps to have either the count or the percent as node labels, not both. So in this last line of code, I set show count to false to only see percents in the nodes. That seems easier to read. There are other good ways to group and count in R, including base R, dplyr, and data.table. Base R has the xtabs function. Note the formula syntax here, tilde, and then one variable plus another variable. And if you look at the bottom left, you'll see what I get. In the first dplyr code group, I use dplyr's count function. It combines group by and count rows in each group into a single function. Load dplyr, run the code, and here's what that looks like. Again, it's in the bottom left. In the data table code group, I'll load data.table and then create a data.table from my data and use the special .n data table symbol that stands for number of rows in a group. Finally, I can use ggplot to visualize the summarized results. The first ggplot graph plots language group on the x-axis and the count for each on the y-axis. Fill color is whether someone says they code as a hobby. And the facet wrap says, make a separate graph for each value in the gender column. You can see that there are relatively few women in this sample, so it's hard to compare percentages across genders if both use the same y-axis scale. But I can change that so each graph uses a separate scale if I add scales equal free_y to my arguments. And now it's a bit easier to compare multiple variables by gender. And there you have it, crosstab counting and visualizing by groups in R. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. For more R tips, head to the Do More with R page at bit.ly/domorewithR, all lowercase except for the R. You can also find the Do More with R playlist on the YouTube IDG Tech Talk channel, where you can subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hope to see you next time. Stay healthy and safe, everyone.